Hello and welcome to SUFCtv's live stream on this Sunday evening. I hope you are all doing well. I think this is our third or fourth live stream. We've had Ahmed and James doing some. We've covered some fantastic topics, and we had Matt Gray on a couple of weeks ago. I know James had Dave Fairbrother on recently, and we had the SUFC women's manager on recently as well. So we've had some fantastic range of guests, and tonight. The guests just get even better. We've got Marvin Williams and Ricky Wellard from the Sutton United Academy. They're doing an absolutely superb job. And we're also going to cover their careers in the game as well as to playing. Obviously, as the Sutton fans know, they did play for Sutton for a period of time. I think Ricky lasted 1 year at Sutton United, and Marvin had 3 years. So it'll be interested to get their perspectives on their careers at Sutton. As to the playing side, obviously we'll cover the Sutton Academy. That'll be the base of it, and the main topic we'll be covering tonight, the amazing job they're doing with the academy. So I hope you, the viewers, all enjoy it. Put your comments in the live chat as well. Also, just to check if you can hear me as well. I'm not sure how the audio is doing. So if the audio is struggling a bit, we can't hear Marvin or Ricky. So basically, I'm going to have a phone call with them. The pair of them. So Marvin will be up first. I'm just going to call him now. So I've just done my quick intro. Okay, bear with me, guys.
Hi, Tom. How are you, mate?
Hi, Marvin. I'm good, thanks. So you're live on SUFCtv. First of all, thank you very much for taking the time out to talk to me tonight. So firstly, Marvin, I want to get straight in. I'm going to start with your playing career. So you started off at Millwall. How did you develop as a player there?
So I started at Millwall from 10 years old, roughly. Usual sort of pathway into academy football, playing Sunday league, and yeah, obviously scouted at the age of 10, and I was very, very lucky to just go through the ranks. Obviously under 11s, 12s, 13s, 14s, and up to the under 16s. And then I did my 3-year scholarship, which obviously was 3 years as opposed to the 2 years now. And yeah, I worked tirelessly, worked very, very hard through that period of the 3-year scholarship, and made some very good friends along the way, and had some tough times and some good times. And yeah, at the age of 18, it was funny actually. At the age of 18, I was probably 17. I was on my way out of Millwall. Really, I just got to a point where I got a little bit jaded. Wanted probably to see a new environment. I'd been there for a long time. But at the time, the club weren't willing to let me go. A new manager took over from Steve Claridge, and yeah, pretty much overnight, you know, it was pretty much that quick, where a new manager took over in the first team from Steve Claridge, as I mentioned, and I was in the first team, starting travelling to Coventry away, and made my debut at the age of 18, and as I said, I had some great times and developed a lot at the club. Obviously, having spent my whole youth time or youth section at that club, and yeah, enjoyed it loads. Probably came in at Millwall at a difficult time. There was changing of chairmans. I think whilst I was there as a first team player, which was 2.5, 3 seasons, I probably had played under 4 or 5 different managers, and a bit of a turmoil really. But yeah, loved it. Millwall's my club, always will be my club. Always follow their results and so on and so forth. But a great time for me.
And one of your great moments in Millwall was playing against Everton in the FA Cup. Can you just tell the viewers about that?
Yeah, so funnily enough, when I broke into the first team at 18, I was still actually playing as a scholar. So I was still on an actual scholar youth team contract. So I hadn't signed a pro contract. I think the first 7-8 games, which, you know, at the time I wasn't bothered about whatsoever. I was living the dream. I was travelling to Leicester's, Coventry's, all these clubs, and playing in front of thousands of fans. So I was loving it. Then it got to a point where obviously, you know, the club offered me a pro contract, and we agreed terms, and I turned up at the day for the Everton match, and I arrived, and I got taken up to see the chairman, and I hadn't realised, but at the time my agent and the chairman had obviously agreed terms, and I went up and signed my first before the game. So obviously I had a great start to the day for me. I remember walking to the changing room, and generally at that age as well, because I'd just broken in, the way the changing rooms were set up, it was almost like you're starting 11 and then you had your section where it was your subs. And I remember looking at the subsection and not seeing my number there. So I thought, oh God, great start to the day. I've just signed a pro contract, but I'm not even in the squad. And then I remember one of the players saying to me, "No, Marvin, your shot's over there." And I remember seeing me in the starting 11 and the manager pulling me, Dave Tuttle. And I remember him pulling me before the game and said, "You're starting. Go and enjoy it. No pressure." The best thing he could have said to me, "Go and enjoy it. No pressure." So again, I've just had a great start to the day. I've signed my pro contract. I'm starting. And then, and then standing in the tunnel, I think I remember it was a very surreal moment, standing in the tunnel before the game alongside, Phil Neville, Arteta, James McFadden, Darren Bent, these players, Richard Wright, was England national at the time. So these players who were obviously top Premiership players. And then, lo and behold, couldn't have got any better when I scored the first goal to put us 1-0 up. And it's a very, very special moment for me. I'll always live in my memory. But yeah, great day all round, really.
After you departed from Millwall, you played for Yeovil and Brentford, so lower league football league clubs. Can you talk about your experiences there?
Frustrating, probably the best way to use for those two clubs. I think the Yeovil move, Millwall didn't want to let me go at the time. I was actually offered a new contract. And I was someone that didn't care about money, didn't bother me, and money. I was offered a substantial amount of money to stay at Millwall, and as I say, it was just at a point where I wanted change. The club had changes in managers. I just thought as a young player, I needed somewhere I could settle, and Yeovil put a bid into the club, and I just wanted to go and just to try a different environment, come out of my comfort zone. So I moved up to Yeovil and bought a house there and really tried to buy into everything. And it just was something for me that I felt I wanted and needed to do. So started off really well, and then come Christmas, I kept having this ankle issue. It probably happened as well. Probably had the issue really from Millwall, if I'm honest. But I just managed to get through it. And then it got to around about sort of October, and I just kept rolling it consistently. And then I remember going to see a few specialists, and they kept injecting me with effectively steroid, hoping it would get better. And then it just got to a point where I couldn't sprint. I kept rolling it pretty much every day in training, and I was strapping it up. And so when I saw a specialist, when I looked at it, we had a scan of it, and it just turned out that I had sort of pretty much damaged the ligaments, and I needed ligament reconstruction and also keyhole. So at Christmas, Paul was pretty gutting. Just signed for Yeovil on a 2-year, and then sort of done a few months, and then I was told I'd have to have 3 to 4 months out with this operation and rehab. So that slowed me down, and then got back probably around about March time, and I was ahead of schedule. I did pretty well, to be fair, to get back as soon as I did, and I just couldn't get going. If I was honest, Tom, couldn't get my fitness. Found it tough to get confidence back, and then my missus fell pregnant at the time of our first child. So at that point, I felt I wanted to get back to London. I wanted to have that child and raise him back in London and where things logistically would be better. So we went to Brentford, and another frustrating period for me, really, where a fantastic outcome, which was to get a league. We won League Two, was something that I would never ever forget, and something that would always remain part of my career. But again, just a bit bitty for me personally, and had a bit of a fractious relationship with the manager. I was young and I was naive, and I made wrong decisions in certain things, and I'd imagine, whether he'd admit it or not, he probably dealt with certain things that probably could have been dealt with better. But you learn from these things, and as I say, we went on to win the league title, and everything I went through, as I say, shaped me in the person I am now, and I don't look back in regret and wish I'd stayed at Millwall, or wish I'd done this, or wish I'd done that. It was something that happened, and as I say, if someone had told me I would have got the amount of appearances I did in league football and also a league winners medal, I would have snapped their hand off. So it happened, and there were some good times, but as I say, there were some not so good times.
You had a short spell at Torquay, and after that you went to Östersunds in Sweden. Can you tell us about how life was in Sweden and the cultural differences between living in England and Sweden?
Yeah, so what had happened, actually, how the move came about, was just because I'd played the year that I left Brentford. I'd played, I think, 7 minutes in a Carling Cup game. and then I went to Torquay, and it just didn't work out there. And it got to before Christmas, and I did at the time know the rules that you could only play for 2 clubs in one season. So I'd got to Christmas, I'd played for 2 clubs, and I couldn't play for anything apart from conference football, which at the time wasn't really an option for me. So Sweden came about, and funny enough, that they obviously their season runs slightly different. So they were just starting around about sort of January, February time, I think the season starts. So they were on a pre-season tour around about the Christmas period in Scotland. So I went and met the squad up there actually at St Andrews, and I did a few days and really enjoyed it. The manager was a guy called Lee Maker, a Scottish guy, and I really enjoyed it. So the plan was to go there for the 3 months or so until the season started back again in England, or pre-season at least anyway, and just keep my fitness up. And I enjoyed it thoroughly. I went there, as I say, summertime, so it was adjusting to the culture of 24-hour daylight. So it was almost like sort of light we've got now outside. That's pretty much as dark as it got. So that took a while to get used to at nights and trying to get to sleep. And so that was interesting. But from a football perspective, a lot slower the game. Was a lot more technical, which helped me massively in me developing as a player. I think at the time when I went over to Sweden, a lot of these formations I'd played in England, and what the norm was a 4-4-2, and it was sort of new to me kind of playing a 4-4-3, and I was playing off the left and off the right. As I say, it was a lot more slower. 90% of the pitches are 3G, obviously because of the weather they have, so it was a different type of game. But as I said, helped me massively in developing my game. And the family say, I bought everything I did as a football player. When I went to a club, I tried to buy into it as much as I could. So I went over there. I did about 6 weeks by myself, and then the wife, or the girlfriend at the time, she brought our little one over, and we got, they looked after us and gave us an apartment, a car, and yeah, it was really enjoyable. We lived, we were really north of Sweden, so there wasn't, we weren't next to any massive towns or anything like that, but it was a slow-paced life. It was quiet. It was lovely. It was, clean. People were very, very, very welcoming, and the club obviously now are doing massively well. Obviously, not long ago playing against Arsenal in the Europa League, so they've come on leaps and bounds. And yeah, another chapter in my career, which was something I'm so grateful for, and yeah, it taught me a lot. Definitely.
After that, you had spells at Stevenage and Hemel Hempstead. But would you really say signing for Salisbury City, did that really take your career off, put your career up again, and as you scored quite a few goals there?
Yeah, I think in between that period when I got back from Sweden, I was a little bit, again, probably got to a point where I was just wanting to focus on my family. I'd probably fell out of love. Well, not probably. I definitely fell out of love with football. Just felt as though I needed a break from it, and Stevenage came along, and it just didn't work out from the distance that it was taking me to get to football. And then, if I'm honest, Hemel Hempstead probably was the club that got me back enjoying the game from just an enjoyment pure factor. Got on really well with the manager. It just came about through a friend. I wanted to just go and play just to enjoy it. I didn't even have an idea or a plan of going back into any sort of full-time football. I just wanted to play. And then I think a few months into a good real spot at Hemel, Salisbury came knocking, and that was because, again, the appeal for Salisbury, which I didn't know at the time, was that they were full-time. They were playing and training daytimes, which was a huge plus for me. And when that came about, the offer, it pretty much was something that was a no-brainer. And I went and played I signed, and I remember I played my debut against Wellard away and got a couple on my debut. And from there, I just really enjoyed it. Darryl Clark was a manager for me who I tried to learn and have learned a lot from. Someone who was just an unbelievable manager. He always coached pretty much with a smile on his face. Never took things personally. The banter and the relationship and the rapport, if you want to call it that he had with the players was unbelievable. And something that I try and do now with my players is to have that. But so from that perspective, Salisbury probably was a club. Hemel probably gave me that enjoyment factor back. But then Salisbury took me to the level where it sort of springboarded me back into playing really serious football and scoring goals and playing with players who were very good level, and a manager that was ambitious. And then I just found myself pretty much in a team all of a sudden that was wanting to go for promotion, and say a manager that was ambitious and back in full-time football, which I loved.
I'm now going to move on to what the viewers have been waiting for. Your playing spell at Sutton United, and this is the start of your period with Sutton. You were released from Eastleigh. How did the move to Sutton come about, and how did Paul Doswell attract you to come to Gann Green Lane?
So it was, obviously, like anything in football, Ian Beard had moved on, so I signed at Eastleigh under him, and Beardy moved on from Eastleigh, and a new manager came in, and the new manager, Richard Hill at the time, had ideas and players he wanted to bring in, and that's how football is. And I'd had a bit of contact with Dos prior to leaving, because I think I had talks with Dos probably a year before that about potentially coming to Sutton, but at the time it never happened. And obviously, so it got to a point where I knew my Eastleigh days were numbered, and I didn't want to be myself having to scramble for a club. So I put the sort of feelers out and got in touch, or Dos got in touch with me, I should say. And we got to a point where it was pretty much going to happen. The move, it happened. I remember the first game I travelled to actually was Truro away. I probably was trying to delay the move, actually, if I'm being honest, trying to skip that journey. But ended up being pushed through, and I went to Truro away, and that's sort of where it took off, really. I think, if I'm being honest, non-league football and Sutton in particular I enjoyed a hell of a lot more than playing in league, and that's no disrespect to the managers in the league football or the guys I played with. It was just for me, especially Salisbury and Sutton were times for me where I loved football. I loved the managers I worked with. I loved the players I worked with, the culture of the clubs, and Sutton for me was a club that just had everything that I wanted, which was a family club, a history, a manager that obviously had something that was his baby, and he wanted to take the club to new heights. Very honest man, Dos. That's one of the biggest things why I think I got on with him so well, because I'd probably dealt with a lot of deceit and dishonesty. It happens in football, and I'm not any different to a lot of players that will say what I'm saying now. But someone like Dos for me was a very honest man in everything. Whether on the pitch, if you played well, you played well. If you didn't, he'd tell you, and then he'd tell you how to fix it. And the teammates, from the moment I got there to the moment I had to stop playing, unbelievable set of teammates. The fans welcomed me, and they were very, very good to me, and I got on really well with the fans. The club welcomed my family, and my little boy now, Cameron, was always on the pitch and as a mascot, and everything, the chairman, the board, everything about the club for me was just everything that I wanted in the club. And it was such a shame for me when I had to stop playing, because I could have seen myself being at the club for a few more years at least, because I had no plans to go anywhere, and never did in that period of time want to go anywhere. And I think when I went through that Achilles injury period, the club supported me hugely in every way, financially, on the pitch, the physio, Cat, obviously, and Bob Childs, who are still there now. And I think that's just why a big part of really wanting me to do something after that spell of not playing, to take myself, luckily, out of football and still stay at the club and go to a new chapter within the club still.
Before we get on to your coaching side at the club with the academy, at the end of the 2012-13 campaign, would you say that was your best goal scoring form with Sutton? Because we were pushing, making a late playoff push at that time.
Yeah, definitely. I remember that. I think I went on an unbelievable scoring run, which I think was just one of those. It was a period where I think I'd probably gone through that for the first time in my career, where pretty much everything I hit went in. I think that year I ended up getting something like nine goals in 10 appearances or something crazy like that. But definitely was, from a goal scoring perspective, was the highlight, and was probably the strongest form I'd been in at the club. As I say, it was just at that period of time as a goal scorer. They'll tell you that it's just one of those things that I was always in the right position. Goals were just, where I say, everything I hit just was going in the net. We were a team that were full of confidence for that last month to 8 weeks. We were just steamrolling teams, and I was scoring twos and ones and twos per game, and yeah, I just finished the season really strongly. So it definitely was probably one of the best forms I was in at the club. But then, that being said, I still think there was a lot of periods throughout my time at the club where, when I was fit and healthy and playing well, I'd like to think I was always in decent form. And if I wasn't scoring, I was creating goals. And yeah, so it was just a shame that it ended so shortly.
Actually, before I get on to your coach, how you doing coaching with Sutton United Academy, I'm just going to go with a couple of questions in on the live chat. Firstly, from Six Cells, as known as Mike Nicholson. Marvin, do you find that your experiences of making a few wrong decisions as a player help you to coach players now who might be going through a similar phase?
Yeah, definitely. As I say, what I try to do is use as much as my experience, and that's not just with the boys. That's luckily, my boy at the moment is also playing. I try to give him as much as I can give him from the experiences I went through when faced with adversity, or even when it's faced with praise or whatever it might be. So, going back to my players, definitely 100%. Anything that I try and pass on, whether it's anything premeditated from something that I can see is going to happen, and I will try and guide them, or whether it's something that's happened to a player, as I say, if it's adversity they're faced with, if it's a knockback, if it's positive praise, if it's a decision they want to make, but not necessarily they're making the decision with their head, maybe more with their heart, which is something that I maybe did on a few occasions and thought a little bit too, or acted a little bit too soon on certain decisions. I've definitely tried to without smothering them, because they've got to learn to make their mistakes as well, and they've got to learn to character build. But I definitely try to guide my players to avoid them from making decisions that I or the wrong decisions that I maybe had made, to enable them to give them a good opportunity to get to where they need to. So for sure, my experiences, I'll always try to as I say, guide and help them as best as I can in my position as a mentor, if anything, as well as a coach.
And a question from friend of the channel, Sahil Sahi. What is the one thing you look for from a young footballer? Character absolutely is the number one first thing. I think forget about ability and what you can do with the football and how many goals you score and so on and so forth. Character is the first thing. Does your character suit our culture? So one thing I always took out of my staff, and obviously I know we'll go into the academy shortly, but one thing I always talk about with my staff is we want to create a culture at this academy, and we want players to suit that culture, and if they don't, then the chances are not going to last long. So I'm looking at when we come into a trial and a player comes in through our doors, the first thing I say to every single trial before we start is, before you touch any footballs or anything like that, today I'm looking at body language. I'm looking at when I'm speaking, how are you responding to that? Are you looking into my eyes? Have you got your hands down your trousers because you're cold? Are you picking your nose? Are you not engaged? And then when we're actually playing, I'm looking at those things still. How hard is he working? How hard is he prepared to go to get himself an opportunity at Sutton? What's his manners like? Does he shake hands? Does he have an air of arrogance about him? All those things I'm looking at, because when it comes to coming into our academy, we've got to manage these boys for the next 2 years. So we want to make sure we're getting the right type of character. Now, that being said, we understand we're not going to get this finished article. These boys are young. They're going to need to be guided, as I keep saying and using that word, because it's massive. And it's our job also to not just create footballers. We're trying to create good, decent young men and human beings. So we just want to make sure that when we are looking at a player, that's absolutely certain and crucial for me, is that I'm trying to create and trying to recruit the right type of character for our program. Yeah, and that's Mike Nicholson also commented, #attitude is everything, which, yeah, as Marvin said there, it's one of the most important things you look for from a footballer and the backroom staff as well. So Marvin, I'm going to take you back to when it all started with the Sutton Academy. How did that all come about, and what did you make of the first few months you had with the academy?
So it was a time where I was very, as I say, I obviously was a little bit down. I'd been told my Achilles was pretty much was the end of my career, because due to the fact that it just basically torn so many times and so on and so forth. So I was a little bit of a crossroads. I weren't sure where I wanted to go. I had at the time been doing a little bit of, or doing a lot actually, of grassroots coaching for a company in Surrey. So I was working with under 9s, under 10s, under 11s, down to sort of even as low as under 7s. And obviously I was enjoying it loads, doing it in the evenings. So I had the coaching in my blood anyway, in that respect, from towards the end of knowing that the career was sort of coming to an end. So I had been doing it, And at the time, I had a business partner who was, somebody who I was working for with the coaching side of it, the grassroots. I had this idea. We both come with this idea of senior academies, 16 to 18 academies. I sort of said, well, listen, I definitely would like to look at the possibility of setting up something at Sutton, which at the time, as I say, he was someone who was on the same page as me. He also had an added interest in terms of 16 to 18 academy, and also Jamie Stewart at the time, who was not long ago was playing with at Sutton. He was involved at the Welling one not too long before that. So I was bouncing a lot off of him, and I just remember being sat at a hotel in Cobham, and I was just sat there, and I had this plan, and we sat down with, at the time, my business partner, and we spoke about it, and yeah. Pretty much the first thing I did was spoke to Dodds, and he said, I think it's a great idea. I know the club had a few proposals before, but they didn't, at that point, didn't think it was the right time. But for me, I was very lucky again, speaking about how much the club have done for me and my family. They said, no problem. We know we're going to give you the opportunity to do it. And I'll be honest with you, Tom, for that next probably 6 months, I just grafted. I was out flyering, trying to get recruits in. So I was out on the street giving things into youth clubs, dropping things off at go-karting places, in Sutton High Street, flyering, phoning, getting a handbook for the under-16s teams in Surrey, ringing every single manager, talking about our academy, ringing every sixth form, every school, literally anybody that was in that 16 to 18 bracket. I was just trying to get us out there because I knew we was up against some good clubs at the time, academies, i.e. Boreham Woods, Bromleys, Tooting and Mitchams, some good academies at the time. So we were up against it, and my passion was just to get us off the ground. Didn't care about the type of quality at the time, because I knew that, you know, whatever type of players we've got, we'll work hard, we'll do what we need to do, the culture that I wanted to create was already there, and there was already a blueprint. I just needed to get the players in who were prepared to be involved in with us and trust us what we could do, and we got that. And the very first year, we were obviously working with Nescott, who were delivering our education at the time, and we were training at Nescott. I remember I just obviously not long ago been playing with Ricky Wellard at Sutton, obviously, and actually we were funnily enough doing the coaching together in the evenings. And I remember saying to him, "Listen, here's my idea, here's my plan. I want to get you involved," and he was like, no problem. He was in. He bought into it, and from there, really, the rest is history. We've grown. We've recruited well in terms of staff. And I think that's something I've always tried to do well, which is recruit good people. And I'm not saying nothing that's not been said before, but for me, again, I followed that theme of recruiting good people who wanted to be ambitious, wanted to get better, had the same work ethic as I did, and that's something in particular. When I first started, I was just very lucky to stumble across that. And Ricky, who was, as I say, in the same shoes as me, we were new to it. We didn't know what we were going to expect. But one thing we knew we weren't going to do is not give our all in everything. Coaching sessions, rain, sun, snow, whatever it was. We were out delivering sessions. We were putting together a model that the boys bought into. And then the very first year, having 25 players, we pretty much quadrupled that, or tripled that, I should say, and went to 60 odd players in the second season. So I think that was a big. It acknowledged, I think, the efforts that we put in that first year, as well as the players, to sort of the word of mouth to get around so quickly and get the numbers we did for the second season.
Can you elaborate more on the traineeship program that you're doing at the Sutton Academy?
Yeah, so the traineeship program is something that we've added probably only within the last 6 to 8 months. I think at the moment we've got such a comprehensive program that we offer from an academic point of view. We wanted to also understand that there are students out there that we come across a lot of, which are probably January, February time. They've dropped off of a course for whatever reason, whether it's they didn't enjoy their course they were on. They've got problems at home, so whatever it may be, and they fall into that little bracket where it's too far gone the year where they can go and join another course. It was almost like it was crying out for our program, players who we could still cater to, because ultimately before that, if they weren't a part of our education program, we couldn't offer them football. So we we explored the traineeships. We know a few other programs that were offering it. We wanted to make sure we could do it, number one, and we were doing it. I mean, if we were going to do it, we do it properly. And essentially, what the program is, as I said, it's someone who's not in full-time education, not in full-time work or employment, and we give an opportunity to come in, train full-time. Alongside the training, they do some classroom stuff. They do their maths and English retakes if they need to, but they also can do a bit of work experience. So it might be the fact that they're working in terms of helping out with the coaches, setting up sessions. It might be that they're working at a first team game on a Saturday with the pitch. It might be that they're doing a little bit of admin in the office, and then at the end of it, they're given a work experience-based qualification. They're then allowed to then go and restart education from September, or go into full-time work if that's what they'd like to do. And we're just trying to equip them and give them the biggest platform, or a good platform to go on to do that. So the traineeships is another strand to what we can offer, alongside the A-levels, alongside the BTEC obviously, and alongside, which we're trying to push a bit more now for the following season, it's also our university degree, which we're looking to also offer through VO UK, who also deliver our education and our BTEC program.
What have you learned in your academy director role, and how important is it to understand that the staff strengths and the player strengths?
So the biggest thing I've learned from a staffing perspective is allowing others to, or me allowing myself to understand that I'm not going to be the best in every area, and getting good people around me who are good in other areas, and allowing them to thrive and shine and excel in that area for the better of my program. And I think that's something that took me a while to do. And it wasn't because I wanted the limelight. I wanted everyone to say, this is the Marvin show. My staff are a huge part of what we've done. You know, my staff, if it wasn't for my staff, you know, we would never be in the position we're in. So I'll always give praise to those guys, because they're huge. You know, Mark, Buto, Ricky Wellard, Sam Rentz, my tutors, Hannah, Luke, Seb Brown, the goalkeeper coach, Duns, now coaching with us, Craig McGee. So all of them have been superb. And one thing, as I said, the main thing for me is it took a time for me to understand that I've got to be better at delegating and allowing others to do things, trusting others around me. And as I said, then it's also then saying, well, you know what, I'm not good necessarily in that area, because my job it does take time away from me in this area now. So without diluting that area, I can see Rick, who is, I think, is a top coach, now can say, right, well, Rick, he's improving, he's getting his knowledge. Now this season I've appointed him as head of football. Let me give him that role now to oversee these coaches and implement a culture and implement a football program for us, which is going to make us better and one of the best around. And so that definitely, from a coaching perspective or from a director's perspective, is one of the biggest things I've learned is understanding my staff strengths and giving them that platform to shine and make us better. And then from a playing perspective, it is how exactly I would feel as a player is I'm giving these players an opportunity to go and use every resource around them to go and take them to whatever level they feel they can get to. So, you know, we're giving them full-time football. We're giving them a fantastic facility. We're giving them an education. We're giving them the opportunity to work with coaches who will help them on a fitness basis, a dietary basis. We're giving them a chance to go and watch the first team train to see what level it is they need to go and reach. So as a 16-year-old, if I wasn't in an academy football at that age, this would have been an unbelievable opportunity, because if I can't get into academy football now, this is the next best thing, I believe. And for us, what we're offering, I don't think a player is going to get a better opportunity to go and I mean that genuinely. I'm not just saying it because I'm hoping we can recruit and all this stuff. Genuinely, I stand by it when I say I believe we are one of the best at this level non-league academies in the country, and I'll always stand by that, because I believe it when we're getting 120, 130 boys consistently to our trials. I think that's just the facts, and I think that comes from a lot of hard work from us as coaches and the players who are making a name for the academy with things like third round FA Youth Cup runs, and you know the reputation of Jude Masons and Bradleys and Bradley Pierces and Crosby Lemmers, and these players who are progressing to first team football. It's only sending out a stronger message.
And you mentioned about Craig Dundas there. How's he developing as a coach at the moment?
Yeah, doing really well. Funny enough, I had a few staff conversations the other day with all of them. I had a bit of a catch up, obviously, during these uncertain times. So we had a chat, and Duns was an interesting one because it's his first year, and he's really enjoying it. Duns is someone, as I say, he's an ex-teammate of mine, so I knew him anyway before, and I knew that he was capable, without sounding patronising. But I knew that he was more than capable, and he's coming. He just gets on with it, Duns. You can pretty much just say to him, "This is your set. This is your team, Duns. Go and create. Go and do what you want. These are your babies. Go and do what you want." And we've obviously supported him. He's just head down. He gets on with it. He's created within his team. I keep using that word culture, but he's created a real good, hard-working culture within that group of players. He's tough, but he's fair. And I know for a fact Duns would never ask a player to do something that he wouldn't. And I learned that, and I learned a lot from him in terms of that respect when we were doing some long-distance running. And I remember thinking, the size of this guy, he ain't going to get through this. And he used to just push and push and push, and that used to push me. And he kind of carries that into his sessions. And these boys are seeing him daily with the first team, training hard and playing on a Saturday. And I think that these boys are instantly bought into him, as you would expect. To go and get coached by a club legend and the experience and the knowledge that he can pass on to players is so invaluable. But he's enjoying it. As I say, we're here to support him, and I said it to him the other day. I'm here to support him as much as he wants, wherever he wants to go, whether it's into management, whether it's into coaching, whatever it might be. We're here to support him, and he's there to use us as much as he can, and we just benefit in the meantime. But you can see he's got huge potential, and you can see he really wants to learn. He's very conscientious, and he's always he's happy to ask questions, and he's not coming in at a level which is I'm playing in the first team, so I know it all. He very much is listening, learning, and wanting to progress as much as he can.
And Mike Nicholson just put a couple more questions in the live chat. The first one for you, Marvin, is what's your favourite age group to coach and why?
Good question. It's changed through years. I'm definitely for me personally, I'm definitely getting to a point where it's probably that sort of 18, 19 age group where we're getting players, or I'm coaching players and managing players who are looking to progress into first team football. I love that age group because you got boys who are prepared to question you and ask why and how come, which is perfect, and I'm happy with that. But also you got boys who are at that elite level of player who also understands that for me to go and get into that first team when I'm just on the cusp of it, or to go into that next point of first team football, I know I've got to listen, I know I've got to learn, I know I've got to work hard, I know I've got to adhere to this culture, and our age can have you can have a laugh with them, you can have a bit of banter, and generally you can go out there, you can go out and coach them and work with them and ask to put from a playing perspective, you put a game plan together and you can challenge them to try and execute it. So absolutely, right now that's the age group. I will not necessarily contradict myself, but I do definitely also enjoy coaching at the other end of the scale. I coach an under-11s team, and I thoroughly enjoy that age group too, because it's that age group where they're coming out of that phase of playing 5-a-side or 7-a-side, and they're just kind of finding their feet in the game. And under 11s, they're now understanding the game and the processes and just your first touch and the running off the ball and the fundamentals of the game, which I love to coach. They're at that cusp too of that game. So yeah, I'm enjoying that. But definitely, as I say, from an academy perspective, that under 18/19, that age group there, I really love working with.
Another question from Mike Nicholson: do you see the players in the academy currently that have a good chance of breaking into the first team in the next year or two?
We've got 2 or 3. We've definitely got 2 or 3. I think we haven't announced it just yet, but what we've done is, as of next season, we've actually got rid of the under-23 division, which is the suburban premier we were playing in, or the under-23s team, I should say. Now, that's nothing to do with the league as such. It's got, that's not slow on the league whatsoever. We just felt that as a club, we wanted to get some of our players first team football even sooner than what they were getting. I think anyone who was at the Leatherhead game earlier in the year in the Surrey Senior, fantastic for the boys, and really, really appreciative to Matty and Jace for giving those boys an opportunity, because I think it was invaluable for them. But one thing you could tell that night, and it was a real eye-opener for me, and what I'm not going to do ever is put the blinkers on and only see, look through my rose tinted glasses. You could see that night that some of those boys were not necessarily at their depth from a technical point of view, but from the intensity, the physicality. They weren't nowhere near it. Some of them that was, and we had a good conversation with a few people at the club, and obviously internally, especially with Rick myself, and we decided that the under-23s league is probably something that now needs to probably get put aside for a season or two, at least for now, and get some of these players out on loan as quick as we can playing first team football. So to just go back to Mike's question, we've definitely got 2 or 3. We definitely feel that the gulf is too big at the moment from academy non-league football to conference national. But if we can get somebody playing 25, 30 times Bostic South, Bostic Prem, even combined Prem, and then they make their way up to another team slightly higher up, then that will be huge for them. And then hopefully if they get the call to the first team, even if it's training or if it's for a first team fixture, then they've already understood the game in terms of the first team game, that is, in the first team environment, being in the first team changing room and understanding that you're playing with players who are playing for money to pay their mortgages and paying to feed their families as such, and to make ends meet, to be able to continue to provide for families. So that's a different type of pressure that we can't create in the academy. We can tell them about it, but I believe they're not going to get it until they're actually in it. So we're very much, it's going to be chucking some of them at the deep end next year at the right clubs, that is. But definitely 1 or 2 I think could make a surge for the first team in the next season to 18 months.
James King, a good friend of the channel, the man behind it, he asked, are there enough clubs out there to take all the players the academy creates? And if not, what happens to the players that slip through the cracks for whatever reason? Do they fall back on BTECs?
So first question, are there enough players? I think that there are a hell of a lot of academies out there. I think the question that anybody that's looking at joining an academy at non-league level, that is are they the right club? Because there are academies out there who necessarily have different cultures, and I'd never badmouth another academy, but there are academies out there who have different, cultures, different way they do things, which is great. We've all got different ideas, and sometimes not necessarily the players are always at the forefront of their interests, and some clubs they are. So there definitely are enough academies. It's just finding the right academy for you. In terms of what happens, we understand how the game works. Anyone who's in football or anyone who knows the game, we all understand football, that not every single player, and there is a small percentage that will go into our first team or go into first team football. So we absolutely are driven by making sure these boys walk away with a BTEC qualification, which is the equivalent to 3 A levels, or if they're an A level student, they're walking away with A levels. We also make sure we deliver various workshops on scholarships abroad, which a lot of boys are doing now. And let's say we're looking at offering next year level 1, level 2 coaching badges for anybody who's looking to go into coaching. I myself have got a separate coaching company, sports coaching company that I work, that runs alongside my day-to-day academy role, and I've got 3 previous Sutton United academy boys who work for me now doing that. So there's definitely a pathway. It's essential we offer pathways, and it's essential that these boys don't leave at the end of the year, if they leave, thinking I've wasted 2 years. So it's imperative for us, and we make sure that we can provide them with every sort of opportunity they can do. If it's not football, what is that next step for them? And we make sure, as I say, it's been a productive 2 years for them.
And with your time with the Sutton Academy so far, has there been any certain moments that stand out?
FA Youth Cup huge was definitely, despite how it ended and the sort of sour taste that left in a few of our mouths. I think ultimately, you look back now, I think that was one of the proudest moments. Not even in just academy in my career, including football. I think I'm making that in reference to the Clevedon night. We went down there, and obviously we all know what the carrot was for the 3rd round. Obviously Man City, for listeners that didn't know, but that was obviously a huge carrot for us going over to that game and knowing what the prize was. And yeah, that night for me it wasn't for me, or my staff more than anything. It was the players that night, the way they carried themselves. I think going to a game of that magnitude against a very good team as well. Not a lot of people know about sort of Cleveland, and we hadn't heard about them, if I'm being honest. But a very good team that probably had 3 or 4 players that were playing in their first team. Again, when I talk about the value of having first team football for those boys, you could see they played first team football, and we were in a real tough game that went to extra time, and it was watching boys turn to men that night, and I think that game there was definitely one of the proudest moments, if not the from a football perspective, if not the proudest moment for me, because it just it sort of, for me as well, from a personal perspective, it sort of it made me realise why we do this and why I'd done this, and those nights there are fantastic for us. And as I say, it was an unbelievable night, but that's one of a few. Jude Mason, Crosley's, Brad Pearce getting his goal on his second appearance for the first team. Those boys signing pro contracts. Me personally being able to take the Surrey senior fixtures was a huge one for me from a management perspective. So some really good times, lots more to come, hopefully. Obviously winning, we won the under-19s league. We've had some real good times, and as I say, we've been successful when I look back and I really look at what we've done. But ultimately, my job is to want to continue to get players into this first team, and hopefully we've got a few more to come.
And what have you in particular learned from the Sutton United first team coaches, from the likes of Dawes, Ian Baird, and obviously Matt Gray, the current manager? What in particular things have you learned from them?
Honesty. That's probably the biggest thing for me. I sort of alluded to that not long ago. I think that's from something that, as I said, when I'm going back to the experience that I went through as a pro, as a young player in general, and I felt that if I felt that I wasn't being told the truth, it really affected me, and probably sometimes too much from an emotional point of view, and I probably lashed out. Obviously not physically, but I probably lashed out sometimes mentally, and it affected me big time. So, as I said, Dawes, Beardy, Matty, even in the short time that sort of he's been with the club, it's just trying to be honest with the players. And even if that crosses over to academics, if someone's not playing well, if someone's not playing because of the fact that they're not up to date with work, I'll be honest with them. I'll tell them that it doesn't matter how good they are. That I'm not interested if it's the best player on the team. I try to be as honest as I can from day one, and I think when you get a player, I think when you're a coach or even an academy director or anybody that works in an environment when you're dealing with a lot of people, I think when you're honest, you can't slip up. And I think there's times where you work with people or you're in environments where you get told one thing by somebody, and then a few weeks later they say something different, and you're almost like, well, hold up, how does that make sense? Because you said this last week. So I always make sure, even if it isn't going to sound great to that particular person, it's just being honest, Tom, because as I say, it avoids any slip-ups. It avoids anybody coming back and saying, but you said this to my child, or and that has not happened. So that's it really. That's the biggest and the main thing. And any of the below, it's all part of that culture that we create, and we're trying to create still. It's hard, it's difficult. But yeah, definitely the honesty is the key thing for me, and what I've learned.
A couple more questions. Mike Nicholson again. He asked, if you could choose one thing, what would you like to achieve as academy director?
Ooh, good question. I would probably say within the next 3 years, and this is something that, again, I've probably sat down with Rick and we spoke about, is probably to sit there and say within the next 2-3 seasons, we've got 20-25% of the year, the first team out with academy players. That to me would be a massive achievement, a huge achievement. To sit there on a Saturday afternoon and to see a group of players in that first team that you've helped get themselves to that level, and hopefully beyond that, is huge and would be a massive achievement. As I say, that education aside, because that's a given, and that's compulsory. The football, that is what I'm here to try and do. And for me, yeah, that would be a huge achievement. Without that, hands down, is to get that percentage of players in and around our first team as regulars who are going to hold a spot down and contribute to Sutton being successful.
And a question from Sahil Sai, which I think is going to be a really good question to finish off on, actually. would you like to be a first team manager one day?
Yeah, I think for me, it's something I've definitely, especially in the last probably year, it's been something that I've definitely thought about more. As I say, when I probably a few years ago was definitely working with the younger grassroots teams, under 10s, under 11s, under 12s. So I think, as I say, as the academy then got introduced, that was something I really enjoyed, and it came at a perfect time. And I think now, as I say, it's first team is something that I definitely would first team management, something that I definitely would like to explore at some point. I'm not looking, next season or anything like that. I've got a hell of a lot to learn. My director role is definitely not allowed me to be on the training pitch as much as I'd like to be. And obviously, we all know as coaches and as managers, you're always learning. But it's definitely, as I say, probably that something that I would like to explore in the future. And we'll see how that one pans out.
Well, Marvin, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on tonight. Some great insight into the academy. And really, really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
No problem at all, Tom. Thanks for having me on, and I appreciate all the questions.
Cool. Thank you very much, Marvin.
All right, mate. Stay safe. Take care.
You
everybody.
too.
See you later.
See you later.
Bye.
Right, there's Marvin there. I'm just going to turn the light on my room. Still think someone's behind me. There you go. That is much better now, Lightons. Apologies about that, guys. Although obviously Marvin's the main thing. As long as you can hear him, that's the most important thing. Right, on to Ricky Wellard next. Thanks all you guys tuning in, by the way. And yes, as Marvin said, some great questions there. Okay, right. Just put Ricky on speaker.
Evening, Tom.
Evening, Ricky. Pleasure to have you on the show. So I'm going to open up by asking you, how did you get into football? So obviously you started out at Ashford Town.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, bring back some memories. First of all, it was just playing for my local football club at the time. I did a couple of years at QPR as a sort of a school kid. It was quite a lot of travelling on my dad at the time. So it was a case of joining my local side, which was Ashford Town, and then I was fortunate enough to sort of work my way up, and ended up making my debut for the first team at 16, and then sort of went up from there really.
And obviously, you made a big move to AFC Wimbledon. How did that move come about, and what strengths did they really see in you to bring them in, to bring you into there? Because that's a big club to play for.
Yeah, well, I was in that era where sort of Wimbledon were coming up through the divisions, and it was a long time in the making, to be honest. The actual move, I could have gone the season before I actually did. So I ended up doing, I think it was 4 or 5 seasons in total for Ashford. In the end, we finally got a deal agreed, and I sort of made my move on my journey over to Wimbledon. And I was very grateful for it.
And would you say one of the best moments you had was getting promoted at the Etihad Stadium against Luton Town on penalties, where Seb Brown, Sutton goalkeeping coach, was the hero that day?
Yeah, he was. You're right. I always make a joke of it with Seb. I always say to him, he helped make me a Football League player, which is true. If anyone I didn't know, he's obviously saving the 2 penalties that day. And yeah, it's the pinnacle of my playing career, alongside making my debut in the Football League. But that day in Manchester, it was a bit of a shame it wasn't at Wembley. Obviously 2 London clubs having to travel up there. But that being said, Etihad, it was great facility. We actually got to have the home change room as well, and luckily on a penalty shootout, which is a bit of a lottery, we managed to sort of come through it. And obviously Seb, as you mentioned, he played a massive part, but I think he's been living off that for a number of years now.
And how did you find the step up to the Football League?
Yeah, I found it a bit tough, to be honest with you, at the start. For me, I hadn't really had sort of much. I come up from a different pathway to obviously as Marvin's just explained, I sort of trenched my way up through non-league football. I never was the most aggressive player, if you like. Sort of had to try and work my way for a game technically. But in the end, once I sort of understood my game a little bit better, and understood what my strengths were, it was a great experience.
And you had two spells. You had a loan spell at Cambridge and then you joined permanently. Can you tell me what was your experience like there?
Yeah, well, I originally went on loan to Cambridge United during the promotion year, if I remember correctly. I wasn't quite playing as regularly. Started off with a month's loan at Cambridge. I think it was over Christmas time. Things went well for me personally at Cambridge, and it just coincided at the time at Wimbledon. Things wasn't going too well for them, so I got called back into the Wimbledon team and sort of straight back into the starting lineup. And then never looked back. I sort of played the rest of the games of the season, and then, like we just mentioned, the promotion year. Following, I think, sort of 18 months further down the line, following me moving on from Wimbledon, sort of Cambridge got in contact pretty quickly, and I think I signed at Cambridge within a week of leaving Wimbledon. So it all happened pretty quickly.
Mike Nicholson asked on the live chat, Rick, what was the main difference between non-league and Football League football?
Initially, first and foremost, just the physicality. Obviously, most part-time clubs, like myself, when I was at Ashford, you're training one evening a week. So for me, that was on a Thursday night, or for, I'd imagine, quite a lot of non-league clubs, it's your Thursday night training under one set of floodlights we had. All of a sudden, going into proper full-time training where you almost train 2 sessions 4 or 5 times a week. You're in sort of on a Sunday as well as part of a recovery session. So first and foremost, just the physicality and being an athlete I found that the biggest difference from the switch from part-time to full-time.
You had a good time at Salisbury, which involved a promotion. Would you say that was one of the best times in your playing career, playing for them?
Yeah, it was a move I think I needed at the right time. In the end, things didn't quite work out at Cambridge. Like what happens in football, the manager changed, and I moved on. Signed for Darryl Clark, another manager that Marvin played for, and he sort of gave me my love back for the game as well. Great man management, and it ended up in a success to begin with. We got the promotion, which is what I went there to do, and then we had a very good season the following year before the administration. But I do look back at my time at Salisbury as a very positive one.
And obviously that leads us on to what the viewers have been waiting for, your playing time with Sutton United. So how did that move to Sutton come about, and what was your first impressions of the club?
Well, I've spoken to Dodds a number of times, to be honest with you. Spoken to him before I signed for Cambridge. I'm sure he won't mind me mentioning it. We spoke, but at the time it was the offer I had at Cambridge I couldn't turn down. And I think we spoke before I actually signed for Salisbury. So to sort of get to sign for him eventually and get to be part of the club, I was very, very lucky. Sort of waited around for me, and it was the beginning of the journey of obviously meeting Marvin and the start of the academy.
And was there any highlights, any goals that stand out for you when you were at Sutton?
I think you'll have to say I think it was the goal of the season for that year. It was sort of a trademark, if you like. With I sort of had the season of playing like a left-footed right midfield player, cutting in and trying trying to shoot more often than not, missing a target, but trying to find the far corner. And on that occasion, I did. I think it was away at Staines. Funny story, actually. I wasn't actually meant to be playing. I think we had Bromley on the Tuesday night at Sutton, and I said, just be on the bench, and if needed, we'll bring you on. So we was sort of 0-0, I think it was, and I sort of was on the bench, and I think it got to about 80 minutes, 85 minutes, and I sort of said, do you fancy it? So I said, yeah, go on then. So went on, picked the ball up, sort of done a little bit down the side, and I managed to find the far corner. And then I think in the process of doing that, I just felt a little bit of the injury that I was not meant to be playing for. And then on the walk back from the goal to take kick-off, my number went up, and Dawes actually took me back off. So I actually come back off, and then got rested for the Tuesday game.
Just looking at that season, how would you class that season? Because obviously the expectation was promotion, but what sort of went wrong that season? So obviously we were well off the first spot and the playoff spots in the end.
Yeah, I think we was just very inconsistent that season. On a whole, I think looking back, we had quite a few changes throughout the season, and there's a coaching change as well. So I don't think that helped things. And it was a little bit bitty throughout the season. But there were times when we did play well. It was clear we had the players, but we just couldn't find a consistent performance on a weekly basis to get the results, which was disappointing. There was no doubt on the day when it all clicked. We should have done better. We underachieved that season as a whole.
Were there any players at Sutton that you in particularly enjoy playing with?
Yeah, there's a few. Obviously, Marvin, he's been a close person ever since then. Obviously, Craig Dundas, still in contact with Mickey Spillane as well. So there's a few.
And after you left Sutton United, you went to Welling. How did that move come about?
Yeah, it was a move where I felt sort of wanted to go back into the conference, and it sort of the move come about, and sort of had conversations with Dawes, and I kind of said that I feel like I need to give it one last crack of seeing if I could go back into the conference and hopefully try and progress on again from there. Alongside that, I knew that me and Marvin had already had discussions with the academy set up, and at that moment in time, I didn't kind of want all my eggs in one basket, if you like. So I kind of tried to separate my playing football from my coaching. I just felt it'd be better suited for me to go to one club, Welling as a player, and then separate it and become sort of the coach, as opposed to it all being under one roof. So that's how that come about. And then, ended up going to Welling the following season, was named club captain, and then spent the following season there.
I just come on to the tail end of your playing career. You played for Hemel Hempstead and Wilston. How did you find those experiences?
Yeah, Hemel was short. It was the last couple of months of the season. Spoke to Dean Brennan, someone I still speak to now. We got on a good run. I initially went there. We was just outside the playoffs. We were sort of making a last ditch attempt to get into the playoffs. We fell short on the final day of the season against Whitehawk, and Whitehawk went in and made the playoffs instead. And then from there, joined Wilstone. Had some really good memories at Wilstone. Couple of seasons there, played in some good games. The standout game has got to be the Southport away game in the trophy, and made some good friends there as well, which I still speak in contact with a few of the boys there as well. So both positive experiences. I enjoyed my time at both clubs.
So there's been some couple of good questions on the chat actually. I just interviewed Marvin and he called you a top coach. This has come from Mike Nicholson, by the way, this question. Would you say you preferred playing or coaching?
It's a really, really good question. It's something I think about quite often myself. I think at the moment, I have more passion for coaching and developing players than I did definitely at the latter part of my playing career. Coaching, definitely more of a passion. Maybe at the start of my playing career, sort of with aspirations of, it's every boy's dream, isn't it? Become a professional footballer. But at the moment, I think the way it's heading, I think coaching is definitely more of a passion than obviously the playing.
A couple of questions in from Sahil Sayi as well. First one is, who is the coach you most admire?
Oh, that's another good question. I think the easy one, without being too generic, is it's easy for me to say Pep. Read quite a few books on him, done quite a lot of into his background and his time, especially going back to his time at Barcelona B. So he's someone I've paid close attention to. Marcelo Bielsa is another one. I'm just reading his book again, I think, for the third time. And I've enjoyed watching his time at Leeds. I'm really hopeful that Leeds can get promoted. And I've grown up as a Man United fan. But for him to have, and I hope he stays if it does happen, but if Leeds do manage to go up, it'd be great for the Premier League with him in it. So, yeah, those two mainly, obviously Pep and Bielsa.
A little bit of a fun question as well from Sahil. Did you have a pick with the Wealdstone Raider whilst you're at Wealdstone?
Yeah, we had a few. No, he's a good lad, Gordon. We've had a few bits of banter flying about, and yeah, it's all in good spirits with him. He does a lot of good charity work for the club and these fundraising events.
I'm going to move on now to what you're doing with the Sutton Academy. First of all, how was your early days with the Sutton Academy? How did you find adapting to that to the role you had there?
Very, very educational. Looking back on it now, I'm sure Marvin would say the same. We was kind of, going into sort of the unknown, if you like. We sort of started the season with 22 players, and we were kind of learning coaching and learning sort of on the job and as we went. But that first season in particular, 5 years ago now, that first season, I do look at it back fondly because we learned so much that first season. I think it's just helped us so much with where we're at today.
And obviously, over the years, you worked with many academy players. Is there any that have really stood out to you and you've really seen a good development in?
Yeah, obviously the boys last year, we managed to get three through and get their debuts at the end of the season. We're very grateful for that. I think, in particular, with Jude and all three of them really. Jude in particular is a standout. I think he ticks a lot of the boxes technically, physically. He's tactically, intelligent footballer. So I think Jude in particular, without sort of been naming too directly, he's one that, even going back to the first trial, he stood out. He stood out to us straight away. So it's not a surprise, or it wasn't a surprise. 18 months later, he was signed a first-team contract.
How important do you find man management, especially for young players?
It's pretty much coaching, if I'm being honest with you, and it takes you back to getting those learning experiences from different managers as a player myself, and learning probably the best I learned from again is Darryl Clark. He's man management alongside Richard Money when I was at Cambridge. So man management is massive. We need to understand as coaches that 16, 17-year-olds, they've got so much going on away from football. We need to no kid is coached the same. They're young boys and they're sort of growing up as well. So man management is everything. Because if we can get the best out of our players, we're pretty much there.
Another question coming on the live chat from Sahil Sai. What do you drill into the young players on the training pitch?
Good question. My players are probably the best one to ask that question to. I think good habits. I think good habits more often than not, and they're saying I was probably instilled with is doing the basics well. They're probably quite demanding on the training pitch, but if there's one thing in particular, yeah, it would be that.
James King asks, what's your take on football being on hold due to the coronavirus outbreak?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those where it's a global epidemic at the moment, and it's understandably so. And it's one of those things where, as you know, there's more important things to life than football. It's disappointing at the moment. We're in a bit of a waiting game, really. Who knows where it's going to go on a day-to-day basis. At the moment, we're kind of in a little bit of limbo, but it's understandable with the current situation.
Till asking, Till saying, "Am I right? Richard Money won the European Cup with Liverpool."
I believe he did. Yeah, I think that is right. I'm sure we were on a team talk once.
It was, how much of an influence? Obviously, I think you mentioned about him, but was he one of the key influences in your career?
Who?
Richard Money.
Not. It was kind of from the other angle, because it was one of them where I went. He sort of took over at Cambridge, and then it didn't quite work out, but it stuck in my mind how we sort of handled the situation, how we dealt with players, and I picked up a lot of key skills from him, definitely in how he handled himself, from a man management point of view.
Mike Nicholson asks, thinking about what you can recruit and what you can coach, what attributes do you think you have to recruit because you won't be able to coach it enough?
Work rate is it's pretty much a standout quality that we'll look for. Work rate, the key for me as well is being able to dominate 1v1s. So from attacking point of view and a defensive point of view, if a player can really dominate in that area, that is one thing in particular we do look for. So work rate would be the first one, and then like I say, dominating in your 1v1s.
How often do the Sutton Academy hold academy trials, and how good are the turnouts usually?
So we'll have, at the moment, obviously it's a little bit under wraps with the situation, but next week, I think it's the 14th. We're holding virtual trials. I'm not sure if Marvin mentioned that, but next week we're holding virtual trials. So with the situation, we can't hold physical trials. So the plan will be for us to have a Zoom interview with prospective players and sort of get references checked on the boys and get a bit of feedback from them. And we're trying to do that on a monthly basis, really. Hopefully, once the epidemic is under control, we'll try to trial once a month. It might even go into twice a month, depending on how long the current situation is.
Just tell me through the match day routine that you have, for a game day.
Match day routine, we try to be as professional as we can. It's a day where I personally wear quite a lot of different hats. So it can be, we'll get the boys in fairly early on a match day. We'll have some food at the ground, We'll meet sort of 3 hours before kickoff. We'll have some food at the ground, which most of the time I'm cooking some pasta. From there, we'll sort of have initiation. So if we've got any new players into the group, anyone that's not made a debut, we sort of have a little sing-song. That player will sort of give a 30-second song. Following there, we'll go upstairs into the boardroom at the club and we'll have a meeting. I'll sort of try to deliver a 20-25 minute presentation on the game. Sort of a name to decide. Then we'll go through how we're looking to play, set pieces, and then from there we'll go down, and then the lads will have a little bit of their own time before the game gets underway.
And actually, it was an interesting tweet from you. I think it was a few months ago. You said that there was a scenario in an under-18 game, coaching staff constantly shouting and questioning the referee, and then the player was then sent off. Coach's player was then sent off for abusive language and arguing with the referee, and the same coach and parents then abuse and shout the referee. And you said, how is that educating a 16, 17-year-old? So do you think that is a big problem in the game?
Absolutely. I think how we behave sets precedent for the boys. So me as their coach on a game day, if I'm abusing and shouting at the referee and arguing every decision that he's making, what example am I setting for the player? If my player then goes around and does it and starts abusing the referee, where does that come from? So for me, it's just about educating the players, and they'll pick up, the coach's behaviour, especially parents as well. So it's key that we understand that as being their role models, that your behaviour will set the example for them. So yeah.
And in 2018, do you think that was one of the most successful seasons you had? I think you had one of the best defences that year as well. So would you say that's one of the best years you've had at the Sutton Academy?
From a playing perspective, yes. You'd probably, if you're looking at statistics, you'd probably say so. I think that year we had an older group. We had quite a lot of third years in that group. But looking back, player for player, we were very, very strong that year, and the results sort of indicate that. So arguably, you'd have to say so. This season, if we was to match up this season's team up against sort of that team, if you like, it would have been an interesting one. I think that team from 2018 might have just had a bit more physicality about it, a bit more physical presence, and we sort of was very, very tough to play against. We were sort of high pressing team, high energy. We were very good in transition, and so I would probably say it was our strongest team looking back.
Sil Sai actually put up an interesting point in the live chat. In Italy, parents are only allowed to watch the last 15 minutes of games. He asked, what do you make of that?
Okay. I'm not sure we need to go to that extreme, if I'm being honest with you. I think as long as for me, if parents are just being positive and encouraging the kids, and letting the coach be the coach and let the referee be the referee, I don't see an issue with it. I wouldn't want to deprive parents of the privilege of watching their kids play. I don't think we need to go to that level. But it'd just be finding the balance of, like I say, let the coach the boys and let the boys play. And if the parents have got some praise or some words of encouragement for the boys, then great. If not, then just let the boys play.
And would you say the Sutton United Academy is one of the best academies in non-league, considering the education they offer and the genuine pathway it has to compete in cups like the FA Youth Cup?
I mean, I can't speak for other programs. I mean, on our behalf, we just try and do things as professionally as we can. From lateness to punctuality to standards in the classroom to standards being set off the pitch. That's all we can focus on, really. we've always said to the boys coming in, they're aspiring young footballers, but they're students first, and that's something that we try to stick to. So whether that makes us the best academy, I don't know, but I think all we can do is try to be. We can just try to be the best we can.
What was the experience like going to the Etihad Stadium? Obviously, stadium that holds great memories. What an insight that must have been for the academy and the staff as well.
Yeah, it was. Personally, it was great memories. It was the only time I'd been back since playing on the pitch myself. So personally, it brought back great memories for the boys. Hopefully, they enjoyed it. It was a good reward for them after the run that they had in the Youth Cup, and hopefully that experience will last with them for a lifetime, because how many of them are realistically going to get to play or go and see a facility like that? So hopefully they can remember that forever.
And last summer as well, the academy went to St George's Park for a tournament.
Yes.
How did they all find that experience?
Yeah, they always go well at St George's Park. It was for the. It was actually an interesting one. It was the referees. We was invited there for the VAR sort of experiment, if you like, with the Premier League and Championship referees. So that was the point of the tournament. That's why we was there. It's a good 2-3 day event where a lot of football to be played. Last time we went up, we made it through to the final, and the boys always they hold themselves in good stead. And again, it's a lovely facility there. We're grateful for every time we get to go there. Hopefully, the boys enjoy the experience.
James King asks, do Sutton Academy ever play Carl Shorten Academy?
So Carl Shorten are in our Bosset League from an under-18s point of view. It was the last Bosset game before football sort of got cancelled for this season. We played them at Carl Shorten in the league. We managed to win 5-1.
And can you give me a bit more in-depth detail about what the Sutton Academy model is like, and how it filters down to all the different academy teams, and what leagues they play, and how does it all work out?
Sure. So across the football front, we've got there's about 9 teams now. We've got an under-23s, which we obviously use as our elite side. Underneath that, we would go into the under-19s, playing the National League Alliance, which is the conference division. We've actually gone into a new academy division this season in that one. So we've got the teams likes of Bournemouth, Dover, Dartford, Bromley, Oxford City. So it's a good division this year. Alongside that, we've got another team which play in a separate division. Alongside that, we've got 2 teams which are under-19s teams. They play in the Tactics League. We've also got another 2 teams that play in the SEL League. We have another team which plays in the AOC division, which is a team that is based and run out of Carl Shorten Sports College. And that's pretty much all of our teams.
And can you talk to me about the Sutton United Girls Academy as well?
So the Girls Academy is still in progress. We're still recruiting for next season. Again, with the current circumstances, we're unable to host trials, but it's again looking to kick off for next season. So how that will work, students will go to do their education at Carl Shorten Sports College. They can study any A level there that they like. Alongside that, they'll get to train full time and get to play their games at Sutton.
Obviously, the season is null and void, but has there been any standout moments from this season? How do you think this season has gone generally?
Generally, from a player's playing perspective, it's been good. We haven't been able to quite get players through into the first team at this moment in time, but we've got a sort of younger group. So for our overall target of getting players into the first team, we're maybe another season or 2 seasons away. But in terms of performances on the pitch, we've been very good across the board. We're currently, we've ended the season now, but we were currently top of the Ryman Youth League in that division. It was in our hands in the conference division. So across the board, it's been a pleasing season. There's some really good performances individually, as a collective group. So it's been another pleasing season.
Coach, I've seen that you're a big admirer of actually is Eddie Howe, and you think he should be managing one of the top teams like Arsenal. What do you think the problem is for British coaches that they can't get those top jobs like Arsenal?
Yeah, that's the answer. I don't know. For me, Eddie Howe is a great English coach. The job he's done at Bournemouth has been unbelievable. With the sort of expectation and the budget of the club and stuff. I hope it's just a matter of time before he gets a top 6 club. For whatever reason, some British managers are overlooked. I think if Eddie Howe was maybe not English, he might have got a bigger job. But for whatever reason, I'm not too sure.
Marvin's actually come on the chat and said, "Did Marvin Williams save your career?"
Yeah, he did actually. He saved my career, but now it's my turn to sort of repay the favour.
And lastly, Ricky, before we wrap up, how do you think you're going to develop with the Sutton Academy, and where do you think the academy is going to go in the near future?
In the near future, it's to grow. Good thing with Marvin, he's always looking to push on and grow. Whether it's more players, and now we're setting up the girls' academy. We set up the partnership with Cole Shorten Sports College, which is fantastic. And there's more adventures in the pipeline, which we can't announce right now. But yeah, we're growing. I don't think there is a ceiling on it. I think in 2-3 years' time, if we had sort of the biggest sort of academy, then it's not out of our means by any stretch of imagination.
Well, Ricky, a pleasure having you on as well as Marvin tonight. I really wish you guys well with the academy, and yeah, keep doing your thing, because there's going to be plenty more players coming through, I think. And yeah, you guys are doing a great job, and thanks for giving this insight to our viewers.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Thanks for the questions as well.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Cheers.
Ricky, and yeah, stay safe. Well, that's it for tonight, guys. Really appreciate you joining us. Thanks for getting involved on the live chat as well. We'll actually be back tomorrow. Ahmed will be chatting to Sutton Disability Manager Steve King, so do not miss that one. Disability team have been absolutely superb, so that should be a great chat with Ahmed hosting that one. So yeah, I've been your host tonight, Thomas Mitchell. Really enjoyed it, and yeah, Sutton Academy, certainly good hands, isn't it? So actually, good plug there from Sahil, just for Omar Bugel's goal. Actually, of course, there's been the vote at the moment. So hop onto the National League Twitter, where we're up against the Notts County fans, and we've done pretty well against them, to be honest. Omar Bugel's goal against Woking, stunning goal for me from the get-go. That is the best goal this season. And actually, a question is the season, is that going to be it for this season? Who knows? Who knows? But we're going to bring you as much content as possible. So we've got a show tomorrow with Steakin. There might be one on Thursday as well. And yeah, we'll get planning for more shows as well. So again, thanks for joining us tonight. And yeah, I've certainly learned a lot from Marvin and Ricky on how well the Sutton Academy is doing. And it's a vital part of the club. So I hope you all have a good Monday evening. Actually, if you watched right from the start, I think I said Sunday evening. it just shows when I'm staying inside. Obviously, staying inside, isolate myself. I forgot the day, so it is a Monday evening. Sorry. So hope you have a good Monday evening and a good week as well. Bye for now, and we'll see you soon.